So, welcome back to the Not So Sugar-Coated podcast. I'm Jasmine Dykstra.
And I'm Bert.
Welcome back, our two listeners. Just kidding.
And today, we are going to be sharing our infertility story.
You're making it sound like a Disney storybook or something. All excited.
No, it's not that. It's just, I don't know. Do you want me to sound all Debbie Downer about it?
No, that's true. So, I feel like this story is probably going to be really long on my version of it versus your version because I'm a woman and I want to talk more about the woman's body.
Sure. I guess it depends on how much you talk about.
Yeah. Okay. So this is me being very real and very honest about these things because we don't really talk about these things. So I grew up with a family that doesn't talk about your body or sex or anything like that. That's kind of how I grew up. I found out about sex through sex ed and period stuff through sex ed, So when I got mine, I told my mom and she basically kind of showed me how to hide it, I guess, which is whatever. That's a whole other thing. But anyways, I've always had heavy periods and I always thought that was normal. And I always hated it. They were really long and they were always inconsistent. Sometimes I would have it 1 month and then I would skip 2 months and all this other stuff. Like I said, I thought that was normal. When I went to college, I didn't have my period for a whole year. So that should have been a red flag, but I am one of those people who likes to ignore these kinds of things. So I just ignored it. And then once I stopped going to school and stuff like that, I started getting a little bit better about my health. I started working out and making better eating choices. I wouldn't say I was eating super healthy. I was just eating better. And so that made me lose weight and kind of started having my periods normal. And then when Bert and I got married, I got on birth control. This is a disclaimer. I'm not anti-birth control or anything like that. I'm more of a listen to your body type of person. So when I got my period, when I got on birth control, I had to switch 5 or 6 different times because my reaction were really horrible. I got my first migraine. I was literally working and I had to leave my job because I had a huge migraine. Then I went home and I started crying like crazy for no reason, sobbing, crying. And then it hit me that it was my birth control pills. And so I went to go look at the instructions and the warning, about birth control. And I can't believe migraine was one of them and your emotions and all these things. So I had to switch birth controls 5 different times to find the right one. And even when I found one, it wasn't even that great because TMI, it made me really dry down there. So that sucked. But I was oh, well, better than nothing because we didn't want to have kids right away. So we were just, let's do this, And so when we decided to have kids, I got off of birth control and I obviously wasn't having my period. And so I went to my doctor and I honestly really liked my gynecologist. I think she was great, except she retired in between that. I had to look for a new doctor and somebody recommended me this doctor. A lot of women that I knew went to this doctor. And to be honest, I just didn't click with this doctor. She wasn't horrible or anything like that. I just didn't click with her. But she basically made me take a pill, which I don't remember what it's called, to make me have my period. And then also take Clomid. And I took Clomid 3 different times, each time raising my dosage and didn't get pregnant. And so it was that. And then afterwards, they also made me do this test where they put ink in your tubes. And honestly, that was the worst experience I've ever had. where Bert went with me, and I just started crying, and I was like, I don't even want to do this. Like, is it even worth having a kid going through all this pain with all my body? Because my body was just so not working the way I wanted it to. And I know I'm talking a lot about this, and Bert's just like, whatever. But I want to talk about the body side of it, because we don't talk about that, you know? And so, like, physically, like, my body was just going through a lot. Like, got off of birth control, getting on Clomid, and, like, also, like, trying to, like, work out and lose weight, because that was probably, like, a factor towards it. And I don't know. It was just, I was just trying everything in my power to, like, make it work physically. And so it definitely took a toll on my body and my mind and my spirit. You know, at that time, it was just really hard. You want to talk a little bit what you went through?
None of that.
It's just to show you what a woman has to go through. And,
No.
After we went through the Clomid and they tested my tubes and they couldn't find anything, she basically was like, get your husband tested and then go to an infertility clinic. Like that. It was like, okay, like, I'm done with you. Like, this is your next step type of thing. And it didn't feel that great. Anyways.
So Jasmine was experiencing all of that, and I experienced none of that because it didn't affect me. Mm-hmm. Everything she was going through. I think I remember going to the doctor with you when you had, like, the dye or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I do remember you being in a lot of pain from that. Pretty sure my hand was in a lot of pain from that, too. Well, that was when Sophia was born, too. You almost cut my finger off, so. But,
forgot about that.
But, no, so when Jasmine told me to get tested, I was like, no, I'm not getting tested. Like, I was definitely very against it because there was nothing wrong with me. Why would there be anything wrong with me? Like.
Yeah. And also, it really pissed me off that he didn't want to do it. I'm not going to lie. Like, I think we argued about this. Like, I'm here, like, getting, like, all these tests done and, like, working out and all these things. And, like, there was one simple gratifying test that you had to do. And he didn't want to do it. Like, it really, like, made me mad. Like, I was like, do you want kids or not type of thing, you know?
Well, I think the reason why I didn't want to get tested and why I didn't think I needed to get tested, and probably why a lot of guys think they don't need to get tested, is because they typically come from their parents, and their parents have kids, and their parents can't have kids without the guy's component of that. So I didn't think if the genes passed on from my dad, they had 3 kids, and to my knowledge, they didn't struggle to have kids. So why would I? And with all the complications that you had growing up and lived through, I just would have assumed that it would have been you. Mm-hmm. So after, I don't know how long, a few months maybe, of going back and forth, I finally agreed to get my sperm tested, which according to Jasmine is fun, but it's awkward AF to be doing that in the house, knowing Jasmine knows what you're doing.
Yeah, walk us through that, because I feel like in TV shows they put you, like, in the clinic in a room and you watch something and you do it and you give the cup back, you know, and they told us take it home.
Well, like, the cup came home, so the enjoyment, if you will, happened at home, and it happened while you were awake, I think, and I had to drop it off before like 6 a.m. or some random nonsense like that. So I was up like super early, and I did my thing with the cup, and I put my sample in said cup. Do you want me to get into detail of what I did?
No.
So
you get the gist of it.
Yeah. So I did what was required of me medically. I dropped it off, and then, I don't know, was that like a week or 2 later?
I don't remember.
I can't remember. It took like a week or 2 to get the test results back. Anyways, a couple weeks later, I found out that I had low sperm count and low motility, I think.
That was low volume.
Volume, I don't know, something.
Yeah.
Anyways, basically what it meant is that there was not a high likelihood of me being able to get Jasmine pregnant because I didn't have enough of the goods, basically. So when we were going through that, I remember being kind of surprised and kind of disappointed because I didn't think that it was me. And knowing that it was me, I started questioning like every choice I made in my life before that. And we'll get into this in a different episode, but I used to be pretty addicted to porn, and I would watch it quite frequently and quite regularly before we got married, and quite honestly, even after we got married. And I was starting to wonder if what I was doing while I was watching that caused me to have low volume or whatever. I was wondering if I had somehow used it all up because I don't know how it works. So I was starting to wonder, like, what did you do? Like, did you just ruin your future of having kids?
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to say. There's like 3 parts to like infertility, I guess. One is like physically. It obviously took a very strong toll on my body. Like me trying to change it to a quick diet and like all these things and testing and whatever. And Bert with his body, you know, and then it transitions to your like mind. You start doubting, you start questioning a lot of things that you did in your life, you know. You know, we got into our heads, you know. For me, it completely consumed me. It consumed like all of my mind. That's all I thought about. That's all I would Google. That's all I would talk about. It literally just took the joy out of a lot of things. It took the joy of another physical part that nobody talks about is that it took the joy out of having sex. Like, so I got this fertility tracker, which, by the way, that is the worst thing that was for me, because I was like, we're ovulating, we got to do it every single freaking day, you know, and basically you know, Bert felt, I don't know, you can say how you felt.
I felt like a cow being milked. Honestly, I felt used. You know, this is going to sound weird coming from a guy, because what does society tell you? Guys want to have sex. And I did want to have sex all the time. It's not that I didn't, but when it felt like we weren't having sex for each other or for fun, it was like, this isn't enjoyable. I feel like a piece of meat and you're just using me and basically, milking me like a cow until you get what you want, and then you can say, I got mine, and then move on with your day. But like, so that was hard for me, you know. I was already questioning if this was like something I had done with my own previous poor life choices, or, you know, you start questioning if like God's punishing you, like, for your sins, like you didn't really repent and receive that forgiveness or something, you know. All these crazy things start flying through your head, when in reality it's just that God had a different plan for us. Yeah,
and you know, like, sex wasn't fun for me either. While we were doing it, it was more like, I hope we get pregnant this time, you know, like that's all I could think about. It wasn't about like love or intimacy or anything like that.
Well, and every time we were doing it, you like had heard all these different techniques of how to get pregnant. So you were trying all these random things. You were laying upside down in the bed or something. And, you know, had your legs up over your head, or I don't know what you were doing.
Which I think that was a myth, by the way.
But you were like, I got to lay here for like 15 minutes. Go do whatever you want. And I'm like, okay. Like,
we use this thing called pre-seed.
Yes.
You remember that?
Yes, I do remember that. Apparently it was Miracle Lube that somehow was supposed to get you pregnant. I don't even know. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it worked or not, but so that's basically the physical, and then like the mind, you know. So
Another thing that I also want to say, like, I was questioning, it was, I was questioning the birth control that I was in. I was questioning, like, we should have never waited this long. I should have gotten married earlier. Just like all these things, you're just thinking about,
Yeah.
And
I would also say that if I had known that it was going to take 3 years, I think is what it took. Is that how long it took? 3 years?
Probably, yeah.
I think it took like 2 or 3 years before we got pregnant. And I think had I known that, I might have started like 2 or 3 years earlier, but at the same time, I don't think we would have been where we are now.
Yeah, for sure.
Had we done that.
Yeah.
I don't think we would be in this house. I don't think we would, be where we're at in life.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I feel like everything happens for a reason. Like, it wasn't the way we wanted it to, but.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I guess I want to talk about like the spiritual side of it. For me, I felt like I brought this on myself for saying certain things when I was young. Like, I remember growing up saying I didn't want kids. I remember saying I'm never going to have kids, and if I ever wanted to, I'm going to adopt one day. Like, I don't even care. I remember saying stuff like that. Like, how, like, at church, you, like, say, like, your words have power and all these things. So I felt like I brought that on myself for saying things like that. And I was praying God will, like, cancel those words and all these things. I was also questioning God, like, why? Like, why is this happening to us? Do you not, are you not listening? Like, I questioned everything during that time because not one thing that was going through infertility was under your control.
Well, and I also think it didn't help that. So we used to go to like a college age ministry, and at our church we saw 10, 15 couples get pregnant, have kids. We saw several people get pregnant and have a miscarriage. And so, we're sitting there watching all of our friends that, we went to college with and went to church with that were getting married around the same time as us, having kids, moving on to that next phase in their lives. And we were still sitting there, no kids, not even like a hint of being pregnant, and, feeling like everything's against us and not working, like we had nothing working in our favor.
Yeah.
And so that was hard to watch. I know it was really hard on you. I mean, it was hard on me, but I think it was definitely harder on you because you had such a strong desire to be pregnant. And, we tried pretty much everything, I think, up to this point of, a special lube, like different positions, different, different after the session techniques. Like, we tried everything. And I think finally Jasmine was talking to one of her coworkers, and
let's rewind a little bit though.
Okay.
Because when the doctor said, basically, there's nothing that we can do for you, go to an infertility clinic.
Yeah.
She told us either you can do IUI or IVF, which there are two different techniques to get pregnant. IUI is where basically they put your sperm into my vag. It's kind of, but in a very scientific way. And IVF,
turkey baster.
Yeah. And IVF is more like they like make, what is it, the embryo? Like,
yeah, they take your egg
outside of it, and then put it in me. Anyways, we didn't. So I wanted to go to an infertility clinic. And I asked Bert, do you want to go? So this is another weird thing about us is like, I feel like God talked to us very differently. And I never realized how God talks to Bert until like this moment, I think I would say. Well, no, there's been other moments too. But like, there's something that you said that made us not go through that. Do you remember what you said?
No.
Of course you don't.
I remember nothing. My memory is horrible. But if you ask Jasmine what I did 7 years ago to this day, she could tell you what I did wrong.
Well, it was
today.
it was very meaningful to me what you said, because I was like, do you want to like meet with an infertility clinic? And I even said, you don't have to do anything. It's just good for us to like educate ourselves and see what the infertility clinic has to offer. And you flat out said no. And you said, I feel like God wants us to give us our Isaac, not Ishmael. Do you remember that now?
Not even a little
Are
bit.
you serious?
Sounds like something I would say. I'm super good with words.
And like, I just felt like the Holy Spirit, like, talking to me through Bert, saying like, he's right. We're not gonna go to an infertility clinic. But for me, it was hard to accept that because I'm like a control freak. I'm that kind of person that like is a doer. Like things need to get done like now, and to like wait is not my strong suit. I know nobody's strong suit is waiting, but mine is really not waiting. It's really bad. And so
facts.
And so like I just remember Bert saying that, and basically that side was shut down. And also, I don't think there's anything wrong with going to an infertility clinic or anything like that. I really, really don't.
I don't either. I'm not advocating for or against it. I think at that time, for us, it wasn't what we needed to do. Now, if it's something you want to do, pray about it. Pray with your significant other about it, and figure that out for yourself. I mean, I think every situation is different. You're not every, our story and our methods and our paths aren't for everyone. They're not always going to work. I mean, they worked for us, and like cool that they worked for us, but what works for us doesn't necessarily work for everyone.
Yeah.
Just like what works for somebody else didn't work for us.
Yeah.
I mean, those different techniques we tried were all things that other people who had kids told us they did to get pregnant.
Yeah.
Like that,
and they didn't work for us.
The special lube was recommended to you. I'm pretty sure by someone.
I think I read it online.
Okay, well, the internet recommended it to you. But like the positions, I do remember people telling you that, and I was like, that is crazy. But maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
But
every story is different, and it's great that every story is different because we're all made in God's image, and that doesn't mean that we're all the same. We're all different. So everybody has a different journey, and people are going to get there in a different way, And so yeah, we said no to the infertility. And I feel like this part of our story is like a God thing as well. Like, I think we want crazy out of the blue story, like crazy over the top, like Jesus stories, but I feel like God planted certain people in my life at that time to make things happen for us. So I had a coworker who struggled having kids too. I think she had PCOS, and she understood everything that I was going through, and
I'm pretty sure you got your little wand thing from her, didn't you?
No, I bought it. She recommended it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, she gave you the idea to buy it.
Yeah. And
I would hope you weren't using somebody else's
I thought
instruments
about it because it was expensive. But anyways, so she recommended like these vitamins.
Yeah, I don't remember what they were called.
I don't remember either, but it was Fertile Aid and
something like that.
Something else. But anyways, I took a whole bunch of pills. And Bert took a few pills too.
I took a bunch of pills too.
And I think so in the meanwhile we were taking these pills, I was praying to God. And obviously I was getting really frustrated and really mad. And I think the turning point for me was, I don't know where I heard this song. I don't know if I heard it like on social media or where, I don't know. but I heard this song called Miracles by Chris Chilala. I don't know, but he's from like Jesus Culture, I think. And I was talking about miracles, and I really, really liked that song. Like, I really liked it. And because, I'm an amateur slew.
Oh, Lord, here we go.
I looked him up online. I looked him up, and I did not know that song came from him and his wife. I guess had like a stillbirth. And I was like, wow, like, you can write a song about believing in God and miracles after experiencing a death of a child. Like, to me, and he said something like, if you can't, am I going to stop believing in God for this one thing that doesn't happen? And so that's where, for me, I started changing the way I was praying and changing the way I was like talking to God, I guess. Like, I don't think it's wrong to like tell God that you're angry and frustrated and all these things and grieve. I think 100% do that, but I also think you need to get out of that funk, about complaining and getting angry and all these things. I think that is 100% important, but also like there has to be a little bit of glimmer of hope, and believing in him even when you're not seeing what you want to see.
Yeah, I think it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be upset with God. It's okay to tell him that you're like struggling. Like,
he can take it.
He can take it. He knows what you're thinking already. So it's not like you're going to catch him off guard with what you're thinking or feeling. But in order to be able for God to work through you and get you out of that, you need to express it to him.
When I heard that song, I shifted my prayer to, instead of like, oh, like, why isn't this happening? I'm so frustrated and mad. I don't even remember what I said, but I think like begging God to like let me have a kid or whatever and let me stop having these disappointments after month. I started taking the vitamins and my period started being regular. And I started thanking God for it. I was like, thank you, God, because my body is working properly the way it's supposed to. No, I wasn't pregnant, but my body was doing what it was supposed to do this whole time, So no, I didn't get pregnant, but I was thanking God that it was working properly. Like, thank you, God, because I ovulated this month. Thank you, God, because, everything's working good. Thank you, God, that our marriage is stronger because of this. Because I've heard horrible stories about like when couples are trying to have kids, it like breaks their marriage. And for not one crazy reason, but if it wasn't for God, our marriage was actually like, we got closer during that time.
Yeah. These pills weren't cheap. These pills were like, at the time, they were like, what, over $100 a month between the two of us?
No, it was like 60.
It was like 100.
I don't know.
It was like 100. You were taking like 3 different pills, and I was taking like 2.
Yeah.
Like between all of it, it was like $100.
Oh yeah, it was like $100 a month, I would say.
And
I mean, it's still cheaper than IVF.
I mean, yeah, it's cheaper than IVF, but still, like, it's not like we were millionaires or anything. We were making a ton of money.
No,
like $100 was still like a fairly decent sized expense every month for it to not work.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, in terms of not getting pregnant the first month, which I don't know if that was just me being crazy thinking it would just be like 1 month and then boom, you'd get pregnant. Like, I don't know.
No, I think I don't remember how many months we did it.
It had to be at least 6, I feel like.
I don't remember. I thought it was 3, but I don't know. But it was more than 1 month. And
it was 3 to 6 months, I would say.
And I know that I was thanking God and that this was happening, It taught me that there is not one thing I have control over. Not even my own body.
Yeah.
And which is crazy, But, through the grace of God, we got pregnant.
I will say, before we get to the we got pregnant part,
yeah.
Throughout this whole thing, I would say at least once a month, if not more. I remember us, maybe it was more you than me, but saying, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to try anymore. I'm sick of this. This isn't working. Nothing's working. We're not going to have kids. Like, why are we even trying this? Like,
Yeah.
and, during all that, I was feeling like a cow being milked, and Jasmine wasn't enjoying it, and I feel like we were both able to be vulnerable with each other with how we were feeling about it because, for a while there, Jasmine was like, we got to do it today, tomorrow, and the next day because I'm ovulating. And if we don't have sex, we're not getting pregnant this month. And if we don't get pregnant this month, then the world is ending. And, it was like doomsday every time. So not only was there added pressure to have sex, there was added pressure to get pregnant. And if we didn't get pregnant, it was basically a failure.
Yeah, every time I got my period or every time I took a pregnancy test, it was like...
And it was negative. It was like...
devastating.
Jasmine was devastated.
I think I would cry.
She cried. I would be upset because I felt like we were doing all the right things and still nothing was happening. I think at least once a month you would say, like, I'm doing this one more month and then I'm done.
Yeah.
One more month and then I'm done. One more month and then I'm done. Like, and I think that it took, I don't remember what was said, but it was almost like, this isn't fun anymore. I think the reason why I thought it was 6 months is because I feel like we took a couple months where we were taking the pills, but you weren't tracking your ovulation.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
And so you had stopped. I think you had stopped, and I was like, we need to have fun with sex again. Like, this isn't a job. I'm not like punching a clock. Like,
yeah, and like I feel like once I stopped tracking, I was less stressed. And I stopped tracking not because I given up. I stopped tracking because I come to a place with God, accepting what He had planned for us, whether it was to have kids or not have kids, or me to be like a mentor towards other like students, or other way I was going to become a mom. I don't know how that was going to happen, but instead of making God fit into my plan, I was like, okay, God, like, if this isn't for us, I'm not supposed to like carry a child or be pregnant, then like, cool. I was becoming in peace with that. Not that I'd given up, but more like becoming in peace with what God wanted for our lives. Yeah,
and I think, we started wondering what life would look like if we didn't have kids. Yeah. I remember Jasmine saying, well, let's start planning trips. Let's go to Japan, Hawaii, wherever. Like, she was, we were thinking all those things. Like, where can we go? Because we're not going to need money for a kid. Let's do something else, Yeah. So we kind of took the focus off of we have to get pregnant, otherwise our world is ending, to let's plan our lives and see what happens. And I would say it was a couple months of doing that, of, having sex when we wanted to, not when we had to, and I'm sure, I don't know how it works. I just know that somehow Jasmine gets pregnant. I don't know, like, the timing of everything. I still don't know. We've had 2 kids and I still don't know how it happened either time. We started just having fun with it and having sex when we wanted to and not when we had to. And, I remember going to church every week and having people, you get people asking you, oh, are you pregnant yet? Have you, and, seeing the disappointment on Jasmine's face and in her voice when she's saying, no, not yet. Like, not this month, not this month, not this month, and I remember how devastating that was because you kept getting so upset every month. I think so. There were 2 times where I got really, really upset. Like, well, I cried. One was like, I think I was on Instagram and somebody announced they were pregnant, and I don't know why that hit me hard, but I was like super upset, and like I just started crying. Like, every kid is a blessing, but it
it just was more like, when is it going to be my turn type of thing, you know? The second event, which I think was totally a God thing, and like I love sharing this part of the story because I don't know, I just you just see little spots of God, you know. We were volunteering at church at that time, and I was around, I think it was 5 or 6 women there, and I kid you not, every single one of them was pregnant except me. Mm-hmm. And they were talking about their pregnancy, and they were all like pregnant at different stages, for second or third trimester, I don't even know, but like they were obviously all pregnant, and they were complaining about pregnancy, like, oh, I hate it when the baby has hiccups at night because I can't sleep, or you know, oh, like I feel like morning sickness and I can't eat anything, and like whatever pregnancy cliche thing you can think of, they were like complaining about, which honestly they're allowed to complain because I've been pregnant twice and it was not fun for me. I remember getting teary-eyed and saying like, well, in my head, not in front of them, in my head I was like, must be nice to complain about pregnancy, you know? Yeah. And some of these women were like on the 3rd or 4th kid, you know? And I got teary-eyed and like literally backed away from that circle and went to the bathroom to cry. I was just really upset. And that one hit me really hard. But the funny thing is that I don't know how many months later was I pregnant after that, but I think it was a few months later. We're still volunteering and we're walking in the hallway, and the same group of women come towards like the circle, like to talk, and they all either have like baby carriers or like a stroller, you know? And they're talking about like babies and newborns, you know? And I'm in that circle, pregnant. And I feel like it's like God made me be in that spot to tell me you belong in this circle because you have always been a mom. And like, it was just really cool how God made it to completion. Like, no, I wasn't pregnant at this conversation, but the next time you like stood around these group of women, you had a baby in your belly, and now they have their babies like outside of their bellies, but God's promise was completed for me.
Well, I think another part of that was, I think I mentioned it earlier, but you know, there was a lot of women, like you said, that were pregnant and having kids, but there was also a lot of women that were getting pregnant and having miscarriages. Mm-hmm. And I feel like the other aspect of that whole full circle story was that you're not going to have a miscarriage.
Yeah.
You know, I think that was part of it, you know, like.
I was scared of that. The whole pregnancy, I was scared that I was going to have a miscarriage. It was a weird fear that I got in. Well,
I think we heard of like 5 or 6 relatively close, not close friends, but people that we knew, mm-hmm. or people we knew that knew someone that had lost a baby. So we had heard that while we're trying to have a kid, and we're thinking, well, I don't want to be that either. Like, I don't want to be part of that statistic.
Yeah.
So we were definitely on guard with that too. Did you wait a while to announce it, or did you?
I didn't wait a while. I was like, screw it.
I think
I was not going to wait. I think because like that fear of having a miscarriage was already in me way before I was pregnant. I know people are like, oh, you shouldn't announce it until your like second trimester. And to me, I was like, screw it. Like, I am not going to like live in fear. Like, yeah, that was still in the back of my head, but I was like, no, like, you know what? If I have a miscarriage, you know, at least people will know that I had a miscarriage, and they can like support me in that time if I ever did, you know, which I didn't, which I'm so happy that I didn't. I can't imagine going through the miscarriage. I know there's women that have gone through it, you know, and I don't know how they do it. They're just very strong people.
Yeah. So we got pregnant, and we had a little girl, Sophia.
Yep.
And that was life-changing.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything that really fully prepares you for it.
No, nothing really does prepare you having a kid.
Like we took like pre-marriage classes before we got married, and that kind of prepares you for marriage. Like,
you were more worried than excited.
Yeah, I think I was more worried.
Which was frustrating for me.
And I think I was worried because I didn't want to screw it up.
Yeah.
And, you know, we spent so much time trying to get pregnant that we didn't think about what would happen when we did.
That is true.
At least I didn't.
No, that is true.
But
it 100% is.
And so I think that was where my fear came from was, okay, we got pregnant, mission accomplished, now what? And it was like, oh, crap. Mm-hmm. Now what?
I would say we have 2 girls, by the way.
They are both miracle children because
yes,
nothing about our situation changed.
No.
In between the kids. It's not like I suddenly got like a sperm injection or something that jacked up my stuff. We actually went back to those pills. We were doing it like pretty consistently, like trying to follow the schedule again. And I think it was a lot quicker that I was like, we're not doing this again.
Yeah, well, because you asked me, like, are you checking? I was like, I don't have it in me to do it again.
Yeah.
And so we just flat out quit. We were like, you know what? If Sophia's the only miracle baby that we have, I'm okay with that. And I was like, I just don't want to take these pills anymore. And I don't want to, I'm definitely not checking if I'm ovulating because it's so time consuming and everything. So I was just like, I'm not even going to worry about that.
I think we took the pills for about 3 months that time around.
Yeah. And then I was like, I don't even care. I don't want to take these anymore.
Yeah. And I would say that was probably some of the best sex we've ever had.
Yeah.
Was when we were trying to have Lena. Yeah, no. But I think at the time it was spontaneous. It was freeing. There wasn't like any like, we got to do it right now, right here, right, you know. It was whenever we wanted to. It was as often as we wanted to. And it was hard because we weren't even in our own house when we had Lena, when we got pregnant.
Yeah, I know.
We were actually living with Jasmine's sister at the time. So that was also awkward, being in someone else's house. If you've ever lived with anybody else while you're married and then you try and have sex in someone else's house, it's awkward. And
they know what we're doing.
Well, they know what we're doing, but also they don't know when we're doing it.
Yeah, I know. I know what you're saying.
It's one of those things where you kind of had to sneak around a little, but we're married, so you don't have to sneak around, but at the same time, you're not in your own house, so you kind of do. But I just remember us both being more carefree about it and more, you know, if it happens, it happens, you know. And I want to say within 3 months, we got pregnant again.
Yeah.
Of actively trying. So there's what, a 22-month difference between them, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, there is.
So we had Sophia in November of 2019, so right before the Rona, and we had Lena in the middle of it.
Yeah, that is 100% true.
And I would say when I don't know if we want to talk about their names now or in a different episode, but
I mean, we can talk about their names, I guess.
Sophia's name was very easy to come up with because Jasmine had it in her mind that she was going to name her child Sophia, her first girl, whatever. No matter what she looked like, her name was going to be Sophia no matter what.
It means wisdom. I really wanted like a smart kid.
And I would say she's very smart.
You know what the funny thing is about Sophia?
What?
You know how people are like, oh, our kid is so kind and sweet. Sophia isn't sweet at all. She is bossy and sassy. And I love that about her.
Well, she's sweet when you need her to be.
She's not like super sweet.
Yeah.
And I like that about her. Yeah. I really do. Like, she is moody and will tell you what she likes and doesn't like, flat out.
Yeah. But Sophia's name was very easy to come up with. So then we had Lena, and well, before we get into that, I would say that, you know, when we were first pregnant, we were like, I was always picturing a boy. Like, the entire time. I was
so much that I thought we were having a boy because you wanted a boy so bad.
I forget what show it's from, but they talk about a boy, very tall boy. Like, you know, he's going to be in the NBA. He's going to make a ton of money. He's going to retire us. Like, you know, like that was
never thought that.
That was my mindset, was we were going to have, for some reason, we were going to have a hyper athletic child when neither one of us are super athletic.
Nope.
I play sports, but I wouldn't say I'm good at them. But so the first, 5 months or whatever it is before you have the ultrasound to find out what you're having, I was like, we're going to have a boy. We're going to have a boy. We're going to have a boy. And then we had an ultrasound and they're like, it's a girl. And I was like, no, it's not. Check again. Like,
it was funny. This sounds so horrible. We came out of the appointment like,
I was disappointed.
Yeah, not excited.
I'm not going to lie. I was disappointed.
It was weird. It was a weird reaction that we had. It wasn't like, yay. It was like, we were quiet the whole ride home.
No, I wouldn't say we were quiet the whole ride home because the first song we heard in the car.
Oh, yeah.
So we got in the car after just hearing this surprising, let's call it, news that we were having a girl. So this was in 2019. So Maroon 5 had a song called Girls Like You that was on the radio at the time. And that was the song that was playing in the radio when we got in the car.
Yeah.
And so that was like the weirdest, like...
Okay, we can get excited about this.
Yeah, so it was like, oh, you know, and, you know, I was like, man, I really wanted a boy, but, you know, let's see how this works. For so long I was focusing on a boy that, you know, I had to, like, completely change how I was thinking, you know, and I don't think I would change it, you know. When we had Lena, I don't think that, like, yeah, I still wanted a boy because I did want one of each, but when they told us it was a girl, I was, again, a little disappointed. But at
you were.
But at the same time, I was like, well, at least we can save money on clothes because we can just do hand-me-downs and all that. Yeah. I was not expecting that, to have two girls and not change a thing, not want to change a thing.
I can't picture our life without Lena anymore.
Yeah.
Like, it's weird.
Well, and when we were talking about having, if we were going to have any more kids, if we were going to try and have any more kids, you know, Jasmine came up with Sophia. She's going to say it was a team effort for Lena, but it was not. I came up with Lena on my own. I know I did. But I told Jasmine, if we have another kid and it's another girl, I'm naming her Thor either way. So I don't care what we do. If we have another kid, it's being named Thor one way or another. So Jasmine got Sophia's name from wherever. And then Lena came from Jasmine's dad. And so, as anyone who's listening to this would be aware of, the COVID pandemic was really hard on Jasmine, and we'll probably get more in depth in this at another point. But her dad actually passed away from COVID. But her dad passed away from COVID. Uh-huh. There is no debating that. And so you can say whatever you want, but that is exactly what caused it. And we are both 100% confident that had he not gotten COVID, he would still be alive. But anyways, his name was Marcelino, and his nickname was Lino. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, okay, like, and with Lena's name, we could not come up with anything. We were doing baby app names, like, we were doing like a thing where like Jasmine would like swipe right on a bunch of names and I would do the same, and it would notify us if we got a match. And
it's like Tinder for baby names.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. But I think we got like maybe 5 names that matched, but like it was more like no. Meh. It didn't feel right. And so I was thinking about her dad one day randomly for whatever reason, and his nickname was Lino. That's what everybody called him. So I was like, well, how can we make that female since we're having a girl? And so I was like, what if we name her Lena? Mm-hmm. And I didn't want to bring it to Jasmine because I didn't know how she was going to react, because her dad passing was extremely hard on her. It was probably the worst I've ever seen you. Not in terms of like physically or anything like that, but like in terms of your mental and emotional side.
Yeah. I mean, it did take a really huge toll on me, and that is like a whole completely
Different episode.
different. Yeah, but I was not in a good place when my dad passed away. It was really bad. And honestly, like, I don't even know how to explain it without going into further detail, but it was really hard on me. And getting pregnant, it was like shocking at that time because I was like legit depressed, and the only reason why I was like even talking at all was because of Sophia. Like she was like my motivator to like get out of bed type of thing, because it was a big depression.
No.
And so
it was hard on me too, because
yeah, it was.
Not that I can't pick up the slack, but I felt like I was doing everything.
Yeah, you were doing everything. You were doing 100% everything, to the point where I would lay in bed and
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think there's anything wrong with me doing everything. I don't think there was anything wrong with it at the time. I think that if it happened now, I would still do it.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with how we have like the chores in the house split up. Like, I don't think there's
No, I get what you're saying, but the guilt comes there.
Yeah, and I get that, So, Jasmine was literally like barely getting out of bed except to go to work, and she was working from home because everything was shut down. So she didn't really have to go anywhere. She didn't have to do anything. And I just remember getting the name Lena popped into my head, and I didn't want to tell you.
Yeah.
I think I had that name for a couple weeks before I said anything to you.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know how she's going to react to this. I don't know if she's going to like it. Is this going to send her? Because you were starting to come out of it a little.
Yeah.
You were starting to, come back around a little bit, while you were pregnant. Like, you weren't so like, yeah, you were still guarded and depressed a little, I guess, but I don't think it was starting to not be as bad. And I was nervous that I was going to send you back to that.
Yeah.
With a name suggestion, naming her after your dad. So I was very like, do I do this? Do I not do this? Do I just settle for a lesser name that we both can somehow mutually agree on at some point? Like, because I mean, when I say we went through hundreds of names, we went through hundreds of names.
Yeah, we did.
And when I presented it to you, I think you were a little shocked because you didn't think I would think like that. So, yeah. But when I presented it to you, it was almost like your demeanor changed.
Yeah, I feel like my whole being lit up when you said, "What about Lena?"
Yeah.
Like it's almost like it was like a puzzle missing the whole time.
Yeah.
And you found that puzzle.
Yeah.
And you put the end of the puzzle.
And
Do you know how you like doing that?
Yeah. That was something we did.
Yeah, basically.
So, and we'll probably get into her dad's stories at some point. That's for a different episode. But yeah, he was always very outgoing, and he was always out there with everything he did. So that's where Lena's name came from and where Sophia's name came from. So we have 2 kids. Allegedly, we can't have any more.
Yeah.
Bert
got snipped, but
based on the procedure I had done,
he has not gotten tested yet.
I have not gotten tested yet because
he doesn't want to do the thing in the cup again.
I don't want to make another deposit. And I'm pretty sure they gave me a cup to do it with, and I don't know where it is. I think that's everything. Is that our story? Did you have anything else you wanted to say?
Next week, we are going to invite another couple who has dealt with infertility, and I am excited for you guys to hear their story and what they went through, because it is completely different than ours.
If you have any stories you want to share with us, leave a comment, leave a review, let us know. We will read everything, good, bad, indifferent, ugly, I won't respond to the naysayers, though.
I'll be honest.
But I do want to say that, we do want this to be interactive. I will say that we do want to hear your stories because those
stories are powerful.
And keeping them in the dark doesn't do anything for anybody but yourself. And the whole point of this podcast for us is to bring light to what we've gone through, because there is someone else going through it and dealing with it. I feel like the more that you tell your story and it gets shared around, the better it is for everyone, because I guarantee you that whatever you're going through, somebody else is going through it, and they just haven't had the courage to say it. So if you're going through this, let us know. We want to hear it. We want to encourage you and do what we can to help you. I don't think that there's anything that you can say that would surprise us.
No. Because
I feel like we've gone through some craziness ourselves. So I
feel like our life is more like what not to do.
Yeah, I could agree with that. And I think that, we're not going to judge you if you're struggling with something or going through something, because I think
did it wrong.
We did it wrong too. And so, we're not going to judge you. We're not going to hold anything against you. I feel like Jasmine said, we've screwed up so much that honestly, it's a miracle we're still together.
It is a miracle.
I'm not gonna sugarcoat that, but just know that if we've made it, at least so far, we've made it this far, that you can make it too. And we hope that the stories that we tell can help you, inspire you, and the people that we bring on, hopefully their stories inspire you too, and, give you something to think about. Obviously, we're not perfect. Nobody we're going to have on this podcast is perfect. I think the goal is just as real as possible without, not putting a safety net on it and making it seem like
everything's rainbows and butterflies.
We struggled for a little bit and then we got pregnant. No, we struggled for a long time, and it was hard, and it tested us, and it almost broke us, but it didn't, and I'm sure there's plenty of couples where it did break them, but it didn't break us. And we want people to know that, and we want people to be able to share their stories. So yeah, we want to hear your stories. We want to read your reviews, the positive ones.
I mean, if you have constructive criticism, 100% send it to us. But if you're just you suck, I don't care for that. I don't know. But if you're hey, can you talk about this more because it was very vague, 100% I want to take that. Or your voices suck or something. Can you improve your audio? Yeah, I'll try and improve it, but
yeah, we're learning. Yeah.
All right.
This has been episode 2 of
Not So Sugar Coated.
There you go.
All right.
Thank you for listening.
Hopefully you'll keep listening in the next episode.
And we'll be back next week.